Bump and Jump for the Atari 2600 video computer system, courtesy of Mattel Electronics through their M Network label, is an adaptation of the 1982 Data East arcade game of the same name, and dare I say it is not only a fairly competent port of the arcade favorite, but is probably one of the more enjoyable Atari 2600 video games that I've played as of late, and could very well be one of my favorite titles on the console. The basic premise of Bump and Jump is quite simple. Reach the end of the track in one piece while fending off against opposing cars, done by bumping into them and pushing them into the side of the road where they will presumably crash and burn. You'll also have to contend with bodies of water that you'll have to propel yourself over to cross safely. There are many tracks that you will have to drive through over the course of 4 seasons, which merely changes the colors you have to look at, but regardless, it's a nice little aesthetic change, if nothing else. Bump and Jump is straightforward fare. You steer the car by moving the stick left or right, while moving it up or down controls the speed of your car. And of course you press the button to jump because of course you do. What else would you be doing to jump? Attaining a high speed is required in order to jump, and jumping is important if you want to cross rivers and things of that nature because again you're driving a car and not a boat. Also, jumping can be used to land on enemy cars and kill them, which is nice because it's less opposition on the road. After a bit of driving, you'll reach an intermission screen, which tallies up how many cars you've wrecked and awards you the appropriate amount of points. But if you manage to make it through a level without killing any cars, you'll get a substantial amount of points, which means potentially snagging some extra lives and keeping your game going a little while longer. The game is pretty straightforward and easy to learn, with the controls being fairly firm and responsive, which is good because the opposition on the streets are relentless and will do whatever it takes to slow you down or even crash your car to the side, which will cost you lives, and if you lose all your lives, it's game over, obviously. There's a bit of a challenge to be had here in terms of navigating the traffic, the streets, and timing your jumps across the river, which is made somewhat easier with warning signals letting you know when danger lurks, both in audible alarms and visual cues above. And despite what seems like overwhelming odds, Bump and Jump can be quite fun to play because it works fine, whether it's a single-player experience or a 2-player alternating play. Bump and Jump sports some fairly decent quality Atari-grade graphics. You could somewhat make out some of the vehicles, even the little skull and crossbones car, which is literally just a skull and crossbones. There's some decent, if not primitive, scaling effects when it comes to your car jumping in the air. That's not too shabby, actually. The scrolling, such as it is fairly smooth, and there's surprisingly little to no flicker whatsoever to be found here, which is something of a rare feat on Atari video games. Sound quality is also fairly adequate in Bump and Jump, making use of the Atari sound processing gimmick to produce a looping yet pleasant sounding melody, while a grinding engine sound hums throughout with occasional loud beeps and scratchy noises along the way to provide atmosphere to your driving escapades. Definitely one of the nicer sounding Atari titles of its day, which probably isn't saying much for some, but honestly, it's not ear grating and that's all that really matters. Overall, Bump and Jump is a fun little driving game, and not only is it a fun driving game, but it's a fun driving game on the Atari video computer system that plays almost on par with other versions of the same game. It's basically another quality M Network outing to go along with the other quality M Network outings. And while it might not be the prettiest Bump and Jump, at the very least it's a pretty solid Bump and Jump, and a quality game to boot.